Hey folks, welcome to the Phillies Talk podcast, brought to you by Team Toyota. Corey Seidman, he's Ricky Bottalico, and we're coming off of a very eventful weekend for the Phillies and Reds at home in the Phils' first home series of 2023. Ricky, the Phillies had a chance to kind of wipe away the bad vibes of that first road trip with a sweep, but then they gave away a game in the ninth inning as the back end of the bullpen, particularly Craig Kimbrell and Sir Anthony Dominguez, continue to struggle. For Dominguez, this is two really rocky outings in the first week. Craig Kimbrell, I don't know what your thoughts are on him so far, but doesn't look overpowering really in any way to me so far. So you wonder already if the Phillies might have to shake up the back end formula.
Yeah, I will say this much. You look at the back three, Alvarado's been outstanding. I think there's no questions how good he is. Sir Anthony just is not hitting his spots. I mean, I think it's that simple. I look at his speed, it's fine. His movement on his pitches is fine. It's just location. I mean, when you're missing location, you're going to have problems. Walks have been killing this team. And I'm, you know what? I'm saying the bullpen right now, but it's everybody because Taijuan Walker has walked the world in his two starts. And even you look back to, as far as Sunday afternoon's game, you walked 9 guys in a Major League Baseball game. Number one, that's unheard of. Number two, 4 of those guys scored. So that old cliche, don't walk anybody because they will come back to haunt you. They absolutely would. I look at Craig Kimbrell. I think he's just trying to overthrow the baseball. When you come up as a closer and you're a hard throwing right-hander and everything is great. That's one thing. But at some point in your career, you got to learn how to pitch. I think he's stuck in between there. I think he's stuck in between of being, I still want to be a power pitcher because I still throw 94, 95 miles an hour. But you have to hit your spots. We all know that. And Craig Kimbrell has not looked solid in any of his outings, really, which is a little puzzling, a little confusing to me. I think Sir Anthony will figure it out. I think Kimbrell's got a little uphill battle considering that he's got to figure out how to pitch on top of hitting his spots. So there's a lot going on at the back end of that bullpen. I don't think Rob Thompson is in the situation where he really wants to start changing things up and confusing his bullpen right now. I mean, you're only a week into the season, so I think it's just one of those things where you kind of fall back and say, all right, let them fall into play, let the numbers start getting better for the back end, and then we'll just kind of move on from there. I think they'll straighten it out.
Well, so Kimbrell, first off, he's averaging a career low 94.8 miles per hour with his fastball. It's actually a full mile per hour down from last year and 2 miles per hour down from 2 years ago. So it shows you the kind of precipitous decline in his fastball as he's getting older. Jose Alvarado, to your point, what is it, 10 straight strikeouts? And most of them have been like 3 or 4 pitch at bats. He's getting swings and misses in the zone and out of the zone. This is obviously the best version of Jose Alvarado that we've ever seen. He looks like he's, continuing to ascend. There are people who are saying, he should be the closer, but I don't know. Right now, he's too valuable in the role where you can bring him into wherever the most important spot in the game is right now, because whether he's facing lefties or righties, he's so dominant. One of the most dominant relievers in all of baseball.
I mean, the closer's role kind of has got pushed off right now. I think you're either a long reliever, a middle reliever, or a late reliever. And I think that's the way most teams are playing it these days. I know they always say bullpen by committee doesn't work, but if you're the back end, the back three of the bullpen, around when you're going to pitch. So you can get that mentality going without an issue. I just think Alvarado is he's above and beyond anybody that I've seen in the big leagues right now. That cutter, and you got to give a lot of credit to the Phillies organization for that. If you remember last year, he was struggling mightily early in the season. All of a sudden, he learns this cutter, and now he is the gift. I mean, from above, this is a guy that anytime he goes into a game, he's going to – I mean, how many times have we seen him not come out with at least 2 strikeouts in an inning? That's insane. I mean, this guy, I look at him and I say he's the best reliever in baseball. I really believe that. But I also think he will get some closing opportunities. I agree with you in the sense that why move him right now? If he's that comfortable in what he's doing right now, there's no need to move him right now. The Phillies are going to be fine. It's going to take some time out in that bullpen. That's the danger of how this bullpen was created. When you have 3 or 4 guys that could close in your bullpen, I mean, that's a little bit of a danger because you're not really sure how your role is going to play out throughout the season. And if you're not doing your job like Sir Anthony and Kimbrell right now, Do they juggle that? I just think it's too early. And if they do juggle it, the juggling act will end up with Alvarado closing out games.
Well, the Phillies signed Alvarado to a 3-year contract extension prior to the season, and they're looking very wise to get that done when they did, because his value would only have been increasing if this continues. Ricky, we were just talking before we started recording about all the mistakes the Phillies have made on the base paths so far this season. It's been pretty much like one a game. In fact, they've already been thrown out 7 times on the base paths through 9 games. That's most in all of baseball. The league average is like 3 so far. There are a handful of teams that haven't been thrown out at all on the base paths. And I'm not even talking about caught stealings. This is trying to stretch singles into doubles, or doubles into triples, or a few times triples into inside the park home runs, because guys have made errors. But this has been very costly. I mean, it's costly when you just consider the fact that the Phillies have lost a couple of these games by a run or two.
When you gave away runs. Yeah, I mean, you look at Sunday's game, they gave away runs. You had 4 base running mistakes that probably could have added up to at least 2 more runs. So, I mean, you look at it that way, and then it's a completely different game going into the 9th inning. There's no pressure on anybody pitching in that role. And to me, it's a fundamental thing. These are things that you should know from spring training. And it's not like rookies are making this mistake. These guys, Kyle Schwarber, veteran, makes 2 mistakes in one game. One of them didn't cost the Phillies. The second one, he gets caught in between first and second on a little bleeder down the left field line. You just can't make these mistakes. They're mental mistakes. These are not speed issue mistakes. These are not bang bang plays that are going on. Schwarber should have been thrown out by 20 feet. And then Castellanos follows him to home plate. I just don't understand what the thought process is going on with the Phillies right now on the base paths. I know of one player on that team that sometimes is not very cautious on the base paths, and he's not even playing right now because he's on the injured list, and that's Bryce Harper. Harper will always bust his butt out of the box trying for that extra base. But you know what? Even sometimes he does it, you shake your head a little bit. But when all these other guys, I mean, Schwarber's not very fast. We all know that. And he did it twice in one game. You have to learn from mistakes. I think the Phillies are a little lackadaisical right now, fundamentally. And I'm talking, even in the field, we've seen some blunders where miscommunications in left field between Turner and Harrison, just little things. And those are the things that I think maybe the Phillies were hurt a little bit because of the fact that they got new guys in. Rhys Hoskins goes down, and I'm not saying Rhys is the best defensive player, but communication-wise, everybody knows where everybody's supposed to be. And then the WBC, you lost a bunch of these guys for what, 10 days down in spring training? That's a lot of work with your teammates to lose. So I also think that could be figured out. So there's a lot to be said fundamental-wise with the Phillies that they have to straighten out, but I think that will be taken care of.
Yeah, the little things have gone a long way through these first 9 games. And I wonder if some of it, the aggressive base running, is because the Phillies just aren't scoring as many runs as they would have expected. You know, they've scored 30 runs in 9 games. So they've averaged like 3 runs per game. They have not, it's been glaring that they just have not been hitting home runs. They've been out homered 11-7 so far. And those 7 home runs, that ranks 27th in all of baseball. The only National League team that has fewer home runs than the Phillies so far is the Washington Nationals, which are expected to be like the worst team in all of baseball. So it's been pretty surprising so far. You know, they have Schwarber and Bohm, who have a couple each, but they've gotten, no home runs out of first base, out of second base, out of shortstop, pretty much none out of the corner outfield. So the power's been slow to come here in April.
Well, I think I think losing Rhys Hoskins is huge. And I mean, we all make fun of his defense. I know he was working on it. I know all that stuff. But I mean, his run production, his 30 home runs a season, his 90 to 100 RBIs a season, that is sorely missed right now. You got Derek Hall going down. So there's a little confusion, I guess, probably in the lineup a little bit right now, trying to, you get so familiar being in a lineup of who's behind you, who's in front of you. I think there's a little bit that everybody's trying to do a little too much. And when you do that, you're just not squaring up the baseball. You're trying to hit home runs. You end up popping a ball up. You're trying to hit home runs. You end up rolling a ball into the infield. I just think maybe just a little bit more relaxed at bats. I think I think those home runs will come. I think this team is built to be like a softball team. I said this last year, and I really believe they hit 205 home runs last year. I think they're going to get close to that number once everything is said and done. But right now, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a team that kind of lives and dies by the 3-run homer, and right now they're dying by it.
So one guy who has been pretty productive so far, both offensively and defensively for the Phillies, is Edmundo Sosa, who is suddenly in a much more important role without Rhys Hoskins. And he started 2 games in a row here at third base. On Saturday, it was against the left-hander Nick Lodolo, who just absolutely dominated the Phillies. Man, he looks like he's going to be good for a long time, huh, Lodolo?
Wow. I'll tell you what, I was talking to Ruben Amaro about this, and the one thing that's almost impossible to do is guess against him, because he has that kind of funky 3-quarter delivery release, and his slider comes out of that same spot. But his slider, if you noticed, it doesn't break until it's 6 feet in front of the batter. So reading that pitch, or even trying to say, okay, I know where it's going to end up, you can't pick that pitch up. And he locates his fastball in all 4 quadrants, and he could go up above the zone when he wants to too. This guy is a refined pitcher. He's one of the best I've seen in a long time from the left side. I will say that much. Ball sneaks up on you. Very good breaking pitch that goes to the back foot of a right-hander. The Phillies were overmatched against him.
Yeah, they sure.
No doubt.
They sure were. There were 2 different innings where he struck out Turner, Schwarber, and Real Muto consecutively. So that just showed
it's interesting you bring up those 3 names. Did you know their numbers on Saturday and Sunday? Now, so the Phillies went 1-1. They could have gone 2-0 in those games. 1 for 22 with 12 strikeouts.
Wow. And to your point, the Phillies they almost won both of those games. You know, that was what the really frustrating part about Sunday is that like all the good vibes of coming back and unexpectedly winning the game earlier in the series, kind of like they were evened out by blowing the game in game 3. Like the Phillies could have been 4-5 out of that series without the power and with all these base running miscues and with some of these issues in the bullpen. But so real quick, getting back to Edmundo Sosa, I mentioned that he started the game against Lodolo, the lefty. Then he starts in there Sunday against a righty, and it seems like the Phillies are going to use him against pitchers from both sides because he's been producing offensively. You know, he just seems to have a knack for coming up with big hits. 3 straight games that he's driven in a run, 4 out of 5. This is a guy the Phillies acquired as like a defensive specialist, but in about a little under 100 plate appearances with them, he's at 324 so far. So, you know, everybody has to step up without Rhys Hoskins. Maybe Sosa, none more than Edmundo Sosa, perhaps.
The guy loves to play. I mean, when you really think about it, you watch him. How happy is he to play the game of baseball? I think sometimes that's part of the battle. And I look at this guy as a guy that could, I wouldn't say play every day, but he's a 3-quarter guy. I could see him playing a lot more than just a bench guy coming off the bench and playing maybe once or twice a week. That's not going to happen. I think right now Rob Thompson's looking, saying, okay, who's hot? Well, Sosa's swinging the bat. Well, I'm going to keep him in there because he has that luxury of moving Alec Boehm over to first base. So there's always pieces to the puzzle that have to go together. Let's face it, if Rhys Hoskins was here, how much playing time would Sosa really be getting? Not much, if any, right now. So you have to look at it this way. He has an opportunity right now to show the Phillies that he's more than just a 1 every 6 game guy. He has an opportunity to say, hey, look, I can play this game. I can play this game day in and day out. And when you go out there with a love of the game like he does, we know his defensive prowess. He's outstanding defensively, and offensively he's showing he has some pop. He can hit the ball into the gaps, and he plays the game smart. So, I mean, you put all those 3 things together, you're going to continue to get more playing time. And he's giving Rob Thompson no choice but to play him right now, which I think as a bench player, that's your main goal, is to not give the coaches a chance to take you out of there and sit you down for 5 or 6 games where you get cold and you don't get to see pitching, and then kind of everything could go a little awry as a hitter.
At Team Toyota, they've been selling and servicing new and used Toyotas in your community for over 50 years. And you can reserve your next new Toyota with them today. You'll get a realistic timeline, and even in this crazy market, they won't charge you over MSRP. Or don't wait at all. With over 75 certified Toyotas, including a bunch of RAV4 and Highlanders, you can drive one home today. And you can always trust them to maintain your current vehicle. Their service and collision centers are high-tech, comfortable, and will save you time and money. Team Toyota can help you go anywhere you want, but they'll always be your hometown team. Just visit teamtoyota.net and choose from 3 locations in Langhorne, Glen Mills, or Princeton. Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone, including a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Well, we'll see if Sosa is in the lineup against Sandy Alcantara in the first game of the Marlins series. You know, the Phillies could easily load up with lefties against Alcantara, though I'll say that might not be a recipe for success either, because lefties have hit below 200 against Sandy Alcantara since the start of last season. The Phillies have 3 coming up here, 3 more at home against the Marlins. Then they have 4 in Cincinnati, and in the first game of that series in Cincinnati, they are going to see Nick Lodolo again. So perhaps they'll be a little better prepared than they were this week. They have 3 against the White Sox on the road after that, and then a 7-game homestand against the Rockies and Mariners. And, you know, the Phillies are hoping by the time that next homestand comes around that their starting pitchers are going deeper into games, because that's been one of the problems here in the early going as well, is that you're really getting no more than 5 innings per start out of anybody. I think Bailey Falter's 5 1/3 inning start in the first cycle through the rotation, probably still the Phillies' best start so far. So the fact that you've gotten these short starts, the bullpen's been taxed. Every member of the bullpen's been taxed so far, and that's probably played a role in this 3-6 start as well.
Yeah, and you don't want that, not this early in the season, because you know when June comes along and you're been beating up your bullpen, you know failure's coming. It's just inevitable. When those guys are seen way too much, they're going to get beat up a little bit. They're going to get tired quicker, and then mid-season comes, and it's going to be a gas for them. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be one of those things where they're just worn out. You can't have that. I found it very interesting that yesterday in the press conference after the game, Rob Thompson said, well, we got Strahm going, and, you know, he's going to be on an 85 pitch limit. Hopefully he can get deep into a game. You're talking about a number 5 starter who really going into this year had only started 5 games, and that's the guy you're looking to pick you up to go deep in a game. I don't know if that's the recipe, but he threw well in his first game. Hopefully he has another good game, because let's face it, Alcantara is probably going to put up some zeros early on, because you go back to the history, you go back to last year and look at, they faced him a bunch of times, but mostly through 5 innings, it was a 0-0 game, a 1-0 game, and that was it. And then Alcantara would, you know, lose it a little bit a couple times late in the games, but he's coming off of a gem too. So, this guy's throwing the ball at midseason form right now, hard slider, good fastball, knows how to pitch both sides of the plate. So you better bring your hitting shoes tonight, because you can't always count on a number 5 starter to pick you up every single inning. So it's going to be one of those things where, you know what, this could be a grueling game for the Phillies on Monday, but it's one of those games you have to claw through and win.
Well, Nola and Wheeler are pitching games 2 and 3, and the Phillies just need Nola and Wheeler to be Nola and Wheeler. They haven't been so far. Wheeler, ERA just under 6, Nola about 7.5 through 2 starts. To your point earlier about Taijuan Walker, 15 base runners in 9 innings. He already has 8 walks in those 9 innings. And remember, of course, Ranger Suarez is still recovering from an elbow injury. So he's down. He's not going to be able to contribute until at least later in the month, maybe as we get to like early May. So the Phillies need their top starters to perform like top starters. What have you thought so far of Nola and Wheeler early on?
Let's start with Nola. Number one, his velocity's down. I believe he's averaging 91 point something miles an hour. And that to me is spring training. That to me is not getting lengthened out. I think they do things a lot differently in spring training now. You know, they look at rest as a huge positive thing. You could see that there's some starters in the big leagues that are stretched out and ready. You look at Lodolo. Guy went 105 pitches in that game. I mean, to me, that's stretched out, ready to go. That's midseason form. That's where you wanted, especially your top 2 guys just aren't in form right now. And for Nola, I think missing spots. I think he got better in his second start, so that's a bonus for me. And the second start was against the Yankees. And if you noticed in that first inning, he went over, talked to the umpire afterwards. And he said, hey, I need that outside pitch. I need that outside corner. And whatever information he got from that umpire, he went out there and used, because he was painting the outside corner after that first inning. So maybe that's a step in the right direction for him. I think Wheeler, it's just a matter of lengthening out. I think if he gets lengthened out and he pitches like he does in his first couple innings of that last start, I think he'll be fine. I mean, his repertoire looks fine and everything looks the same. It's just that I think he looks a little rushed out there. And there's a lot of people saying, well, these guys are rushed. They're rushed. If you look at the clock, they're letting pitches go with like 9 seconds left. So they're in reality, they're kind of rushing themselves. Get up there. If you need an extra 5 seconds, start your windup with 1 second on the clock. And I think their time clocks are just a little too quick for this pitch clock right now.
You know, I was thinking that watching Sunday's game when Alvarado was on the mound, that he was releasing every pitch like 5 seconds after the clock began, which probably makes him even more difficult to hit. You know, if you're a batter in there and you're already addressing him and face toward him, and he's letting the ball go 5 seconds after he gets it back, and he's unfurling an 100-mile-per-hour sinker or fastball, that's got to be almost impossible.
Let him wait. I mean, the more they have to wait in that box, the less comfortable they're going to feel against you. And, you know, everything's about timing. Everything's about comfort level for hitters. And if their timing's even off just a little bit, that's an advantage to the pitcher. I think when you go up there and rush and you're throwing the ball before like 9 or 8 seconds left, I think you're doing that to yourself. And I think that could be changed. And what it really takes is the pitching coach to kind of take you to the side and take you in your bullpen sessions and say, okay, let's go. And we're going to use the pitch clock during this bullpen session. And let's see if you can't start running the clock down to, you know, let's say 3 seconds. And then you'll feel a lot more comfortable when you get on the mound, that when you're at 7 or 8 seconds, that you know you still have a time left. I think rushing is one thing, but trying to like destroy the pitch clock is another. And I think there's a lot of guys out there that need extra time. Take the extra time. It's that simple. There's going to be pitches where you may have to rush, but I think if you're doing your homework before the game, and JT's doing his homework before the game, which I know he is, I think you guys could get the pitch down within 2 or 3 seconds. Then you have a nice little clump of time to get a pitch off.
Well, we'll see if this is the series where the Phillies pitching staff can kind of get back on track. The Marlins have been held to 2 runs or fewer in 7 of their first 10 games so far. It's the same old story with Miami. Good pitching, a lack of offense. The Phillies have had some early jitters here on the base paths and in the bullpen and with this lack of power. But, you know, the upcoming schedule, it's not all that difficult with Miami and Cincinnati, 2 more teams that, you know, you're expecting to be able to beat up on, 2 more series you should be able to win.
These are teams you have to beat.
Yeah,
I mean, when you really look at the schedule, these are the games you have to win. Those Reds games, blowing a Reds game on Sunday, that's a game you have to win. And you got 4 more coming up against them. And now you're thinking to yourself, well, we should take 3 out of 4 from the Reds when we go out there to play them. And then, you know, it's just one of those things where you have to clean up against the lesser teams now. And if you don't, think about this, like I look at it this way. You went into Texas, you lost 3 games. You lost 3 games in Texas. Now, if Atlanta or the Mets go into Texas and win 3 games, that's 3 games you lost in the standings. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the way the standings are going to look this year. You only play each team, 12 times in your own division? That to me is it's going to be a tough go. That's why you have to beat all these teams that are on the bottom.
Well, especially because you remember last year, there was that like murderer's row of games the Phillies faced in the month of May. It culminated with Joe Girardi getting fired.
Yeah.
Well, once the Phillies get past the Mariners, which is April 25th through 27th, they have a really difficult run there. They're at Houston, at the Dodgers. Then they have 3 at home against the Red Sox, who are off to a really hot start offensively. Then they host the Blue Jays, another good offensive team. Then the Phillies go to Coors Field, where they always seem to have problems, whether, you know, they're a high payroll, high expectation team or not. So that upcoming schedule, after you get past really the 3rd week of April, it's a bear for the Phillies. So hopefully
it is a bear. And that's why these games are very important. I always say every game counts. I mean, you throw away a game early, you're going to have to make that one up somewhere else. So the more you do early on and get a comfort level, you're going to be better off as the season clicks on. We know, we've seen it. It doesn't get any easier in August and September either, because those are the days where the games seem long. Everything seems long for players. The days seem long. Waiting to go to the ballpark, everything seems longer. And those are the games that become a little bit grueling. So get some wins now. Give yourself a little comfort zone.
Hey, last thing before we get out of here, Matt Strahm, kind of an old school mentality, huh? Taking up that number 5 spot, saying he doesn't care if he's a starter or reliever. Just give me the ball. I'll take it whenever.
He's got some fire to him. I love this guy's fire. I mean, he threw a pitch and it was a swing and miss last game, and he was like, get the ball down, talking to himself on the mound. I love that. I love that he's giving himself that little extra push, that little extra incentive. I like that he's fighting for that spot. I like that he's like, I belong here type guy. And anytime you have a guy that can go out of the bullpen or go, take a step in and be your number 5 starter, I think that's outstanding. This guy is showing that he's got some guts, and I think that shows a lot, especially in Philadelphia. People love that type of guy.
Yeah, he's already a fan favorite, Matt Strahm, and some of that's about performance. We'll see if he can continue performing as the Phillies open their series against the Miami Marlins. Thanks a lot to Ricky. Thanks a lot to all you guys out there listening, and we will catch you later in the week.